They called me crazy before they ever learned my name. I was the girl in room 317, the one who screamed when nurses came close, the one who slapped hands away when they tried to inject me, the one who spit pills into napkins and flushed them down the toilet when no one was looking. My name is Lena, I'm 26 years old, and I refused every injection. Every pill. Every order. Non-compliant, they wrote on my chart like it explained everything. It didn't. I wasn't afraid of the medicine. I was afraid of losing myself again. The white walls of the psychiatric ward hummed day and night. Doors clicked. Shoes squeaked. Patients cried. Some laughed at nothing. Some stared through windows like their souls had already left. Every morning, the same ritual. 2 nurses. A tray. A syringe. Lena, please, one of them would say softly. This will help. No, I'd whisper, backing into the corner. I'm not doing it. They tried force once. After that, I fought harder. I'd learned one thing in my life: when you give in, people stop seeing you as human. Then one afternoon, everything changed. A new orderly walked in. Not rushed. Not annoyed. Not holding a syringe. He looked at me calmly and said something no one else ever had. I won't touch you unless you ask me to. I laughed, sharp, broken. Then you'll never touch me, I said. He smiled slightly. That's okay, he replied. I'm not here to win. I'm here to stay. And for the first time since they locked that door behind me, I felt something dangerous. Curiosity. His name was Ethan. I learned it because he didn't bark it at me like a command or read it off a badge while strapping gloves on. He said it once, casually, like it didn't matter if I remembered or not. I'll be here most afternoons, he told me. You don't have to talk. So I didn't. The first day, he sat in the chair by the wall and read a book. Not a medical chart. Not a clipboard. A real book, dog-eared, soft-covered, boring enough to be safe. He didn't look at me every 2 seconds to check if I was behaving. He didn't angle his body like he was ready to restrain me. That alone made me uneasy. On the second day, he brought me a paper cup of water and placed it on the table, then stepped back. If you don't want it, I'll take it away, he said. I stared at the cup like it was a trick. When I didn't move, he picked it up and left. No sigh. No disappointment. By the third day, the nurses were whispering. He's too soft. She's manipulating him. She'll never take her meds. Ethan didn't argue with them. He just kept showing up. One afternoon, while the others were at group therapy, he asked quietly, "Can I ask why you're so scared of the injections?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. "I'm not scared." He nodded. "Okay. Then why do you refuse?" I didn't answer right away. No one had ever asked like that, without already deciding I was lying. Because, I said finally, the last time I let someone decide what was best for me, I disappeared. He didn't ask for details. He didn't lean in. He just said, "Then we'll make sure you don't disappear again." I hated how calm he sounded. Because part of me wanted to believe him. And believing people had always been the most dangerous thing I'd ever done. I made a rule after Ethan. One rule only. No one gets close enough to matter. Because that's how it always starts. Kindness first. Patience second. Control third. Ethan didn't break the rule right away. He just bent around it. He started bringing a chair closer, but never too close. He'd sit sideways, not facing me head-on, like he didn't want to corner me. Sometimes he'd talk. Sometimes he wouldn't. If I stayed silent, he respected it. If I spoke, he listened like my words weren't symptoms. One day, I asked him, "Why do you work here?" He didn't answer immediately. "My sister was here once," he said finally. Different hospital. Different outcome. That was it. No sob story. No speech. Just one sentence. And somehow, that told me everything. The nurses kept trying. She needs her injection today. She's escalating. She's not improving. Ethan stood between me and the door once, not aggressively, not dramatically. He just said, "Give us 10 minutes." They laughed. "She's playing you," one nurse said. Ethan didn't look back. "Then I'll lose," he replied. "But she won't." That night, I dreamed for the first time in months. Not nightmares. Not screaming. Just a quiet room where someone stayed. The next morning, when the tray came in with pills and the syringe, my hands started shaking like always. Ethan met my eyes. "You don't have to," he said. "Not today. Not ever. But if you want to, I'll sit with you." I stared at the pills. My heart was racing. My head was screaming. And then I did something that shocked everyone. I didn't take the injection. But I didn't push the pills away either. I let them sit there. Between us. Like a choice. The room felt smaller that morning. Not because the walls moved, but because the choice did. The tray sat on the table between us. 2 pills. 1 cup of water. No syringe. The nurses had already lost patience and left, muttering that it wouldn't matter anyway. Ethan didn't look at the pills. He looked at me. No pressure. No countdown. No disappointment waiting to happen. I hated how much that mattered. My hands were shaking. I pressed them between my knees, nails digging into my skin to remind myself I was still here. Still real. Still in control. "You don't have to prove anything," Ethan said quietly. "Not to me. Not to them." "I know," I snapped. Then softer, "That's the problem. Because if I said yes, it wouldn't be forced. And if it helped, I'd have to admit I wasn't as broken as I told myself." I picked up 1 pill. Just one. The room didn't explode. No alarms. No hands grabbed me. Ethan stayed exactly where he was. I swallowed. The taste was bitter. My throat burned. Tears filled my eyes, not from fear, but from something worse. Relief. I laughed once, sharp and shaky. "Don't look so surprised." "I'm not," he said. "I knew you'd choose yourself eventually." That night, for the first time since I'd been admitted, I wasn't restrained. I wasn't sedated. I wasn't lost. I slept. Not deep. Not perfect. But enough. The next morning, the chart changed. From non-compliant to improving with support. They credited the medication. They were wrong. It wasn't the meds that broke through. It was the fact that someone finally waited long enough to meet me where I was. And I didn't realize it yet, but I had just met my match. They started watching us after that. Not openly. Not officially. Just little things. A nurse lingering too long in the hallway. A doctor sitting in during check-ins that were never scheduled before. My progress notes suddenly got longer. More careful. "Be mindful of boundaries," one of them told Ethan within earshot. He nodded. Said nothing. But something had already shifted. I was allowed outside time now. Short walks in the courtyard with the high fences and the dying plants that never quite got enough sun. Ethan walked beside me, always a half step back, like he was giving me space even while staying close. "How does it feel?" he asked one afternoon. "To breathe?" I said. "Terrifying." He smiled. "Yeah. That tracks." I started talking more. About small things at first. Music I liked. A dog I'd had once. Then bigger things slipped out when I wasn't watching, how my thoughts sometimes raced until they felt like knives, how silence could be louder than screaming. Ethan never interrupted. Never corrected. One day, I asked the question I'd been circling for weeks. "Why don't you push me?" He stopped walking. Because every person here gets pushed, he said. I wanted you to have one place where you weren't. That was the moment I knew. Not that I loved him. Not that I trusted him completely. But that he was dangerous to the walls I had built to survive. The meds continued. Slowly. On my terms. Some days I said yes. Some days I didn't. And somehow, the world didn't end when I chose no. Then came the meeting. 3 doctors. 1 supervisor. Ethan wasn't invited. Your improvement is significant, the head psychiatrist said. But your attachment to 1 staff member is concerning. I crossed my arms. So is your need to control everything. They exchanged looks. We're reassigning Ethan, she said calmly. Effective tomorrow. The room tilted. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. No, I said. You don't get to take the one person who didn't treat me like a problem. The doctor sighed. This is for your own good. I laughed. Loud. Unstable. Honest. That's what everyone says right before I disappear. That night, Ethan came to say goodbye. He stood at the doorway, hands in his pockets, trying to look steady. I didn't fight it, he admitted quietly. I should have. I'm sorry. I walked toward him. Stopped just short. You were my match, I said. Not because you were strong. But because you didn't need to be. His voice broke. You don't need me to keep getting better. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I said. But you changed the rules. And now they can't put them back. As he turned to leave, something in me hardened. I wasn't going back to being compliant. I was going to be heard. I didn't sleep after Ethan left. I sat on my bed, knees pulled to my chest, listening to the hallway sounds I'd memorized over months, the cartwheels, the distant coughing, the click of doors locking people into versions of themselves no one bothered to understand. By morning, I'd made a decision. When the nurse came in with the tray, she froze. I was already sitting at the table. Back straight. Hands steady. I'll take the pills, I said. Her eyebrows shot up. All of them? Yes, I replied. And I want to speak to the head psychiatrist. Today. She hesitated, then nodded. I swallowed the pills one by one. Not because I was scared of losing progress, but because this time, it was my move, not theirs. In the meeting room, I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't perform sanity for anyone. You reassigned Ethan because you were uncomfortable, I said calmly. Not because I was unsafe. The head psychiatrist folded her hands. Attachment can hinder recovery. So can fear, I said. So can being treated like a liability instead of a person. Silence. I'm improving because I was given agency, I continued. Take that away, and you'll get compliance. Not healing. They stared at me like they were seeing me for the first time. I want my treatment plan revised, I said. Clear goals. Informed consent. And supervised contact with Ethan present as an advocate, not a caregiver. One of them scoffed. You're asking for special treatment. I smiled slightly. No. I'm asking for ethical treatment. They asked for time. 2 hours later, they came back. The reassignment stood. But everything else changed. I got a patient advocate. My medication plan became collaborative. And most importantly, they scheduled my evaluation for discharge. That evening, as I walked the courtyard alone, I felt it. I wasn't fighting to be saved anymore. I was walking toward myself. And somewhere in the building, Ethan was packing up a locker, believing his job was done. He was wrong. Our paths weren't over. They were just about to cross again, on equal ground. They cleared me for discharge on a Tuesday. No celebration. No speeches. Just paperwork, a bag of clothes that didn't quite feel like mine anymore, and a final reminder list printed in neat black ink. Take your meds. Attend therapy. Avoid emotional stressors. I almost laughed at the last one. Emotional stressors were the only reason I was still alive. When I stepped outside, the air felt wrong, too big, too loud, too free. Cars passed. People walked by without knowing I'd spent months learning how to exist again. And then I saw him. Ethan stood across the street, leaning against his car like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be there. No uniform. No badge. Just him. My heart stopped. You weren't supposed to come, I said, voice shaking. I know, he replied. But I figured, you'd still walk out either way. I crossed the street slowly. Each step felt earned. I didn't get better because of you, I said when I reached him. He nodded. I know. I got better because you treated me like I wasn't broken. That made his eyes shine. He looked away quickly, embarrassed. I resigned, he said quietly. After they reassigned me. Couldn't keep pretending the system wasn't hurting people. I studied his face. Tired. Kind. Uncertain. So what now? I asked. He smiled softly. Now I don't get to tell you what to do. I took a breath. Good, I said. Because now I choose you. Not as a savior. Not as a patient. Not as someone who needed permission. But as my equal. We stood there for a moment, the hospital behind us, the world in front of us. And for the first time, no one was holding anything over my head. No syringes. No charts. No labels. Just two people who survived differently, and met in the middle. One last part remained. Not recovery. Reckoning. They said I'd always need supervision. That I'd relapse the moment life got hard. That love would destabilize me. That I was too much. They were wrong. Life did get hard. There were nights my thoughts raced again, sharp and fast. Mornings when the pills felt heavier than they used to. Days when the old fear whispered that disappearing would be easier. But this time, I wasn't alone, and I wasn't being watched. Ethan never asked if I'd taken my meds. Never checked my moods like a chart. Never tried to fix me. He'd just say, "How are you today?" And wait for the real answer. That was the difference. We built something slow. Careful. Real. Therapy appointments stayed. Boundaries stayed. Choices stayed mine. Some days I stumbled. Some days I was strong. Both were allowed. One afternoon, months later, we passed the hospital by chance. I stopped. For a moment, the walls looked smaller than I remembered. I used to think refusing the injections made me powerful, I said quietly. But it wasn't the refusal. Ethan glanced at me. What was it? Waiting, I replied. For someone who wouldn't leave or force or label me. He smiled. You were never crazy, Lena. You were unheard. I reached for his hand, not because I needed grounding, but because I wanted connection. I didn't meet my match because he controlled me. I met my match because he never tried to. And that's how I finally learned the truth. Healing doesn't come from compliance. It comes from consent. From dignity. From being seen. I wasn't cured. I was alive. And for the first time in my life. That was more than enough.